Hello, welcome. All right, so I'm going to get your names down, and I have about five questions that I want to go over because I'm not sure that they are found explicitly in the argumentative assignments for test 2 that you're doing this week. But besides that, those are the only ones I was going to cover. I don't go through the whole test on test 2 and 3 as I do on test 1. And I hope that's okay. But like I said, it's just, I figured those are the only two things that I'll make you guys do a little bit of work on your own. But like I said, the ones that I'm going to cover voluntarily are the ones that aren't explicitly found in your assignments. And then I'll give you an opportunity to ask me a question on specific questions, and I won't say no to that. Okay, so let me get the names down. Oh, we have a good crowd today. Are there any questions as I'm writing down the names? Sorry, it's taking me a bit. Okay, I believe I have all of them. So I'm going to share the page, all right, with test 2. The very first one, it should be found in your introduction to the War for Independence assignment. But notice the one that doesn't fit, because I did mention the following. I mentioned demographic boom. People, remember, it's just asking what is considered usually relevant context, the surrounding circumstances that are relevant to discerning why and how something happened, right? To the War for Independence. So I did mention population boom and dispersion to and from the cities. Political ambiguity, right? It not being clear about their rights as Englishmen. I make that claim in the introduction as well, and I spoke on that in class. But look at C, British plans to placate colonial tensions and granting Native American lands to the colonies. In the common narrative, it's usually the opposite. Like with the proclamation of 1763, they were trying at the time to placate the Native Americans, not the colonists, and trying to keep the colonists out of the Trans-Appalachian region, okay, in the West, out of that Western frontier. So that one doesn't fit. And then historical events that put stress on the British Empire, absolutely. Such as the 7 Years' War or the French and Indian War, okay? The other ones you find right out of your assignment, as far as a salutary neglect thesis, Bernard Bailyn's thesis, Howard Zinn's thesis. Okay, you have all the question on each of them on there. Remember, Bernard Bailyn had the romantic thesis, which I would call ideological causation, that the founding father generation was caught up in the Enlightenment, in the Scottish Enlightenment, in the Great Awakening, and these new ideals kind of catapulted and determined their actions in rebelling against Great Britain. All right, and so it's kind of the romantic court history stating that America is exceptional, right? That they were born, we were born as a nation on lofty ideals, according to court historians, and which I include the book of Bernard Bailyn's called The Ideological Origins of the Revolution. Salutary neglect thesis, that's number 1 on your handout. Remember, so that the British supposedly neglected us as their colonists, but that was a good thing. It had a salutary or healthy effect, and we fought to keep a good thing going. It talked about the strengthening of the assemblies, talked about us smuggling and doing what we wished economically. And then the British tried to crack down on us. It's a pretty popular thesis, evidently, in England itself, an interpretation to our war for independence. And remember, Howard Zinn had the populist, had the demagogue thesis, that the founding fathers were manipulative. They had their own agenda. They used the British as a convenient scapegoat to try to avoid a class war with the poor of their own colonies. And they used the rhetoric of the revolution as propaganda to try to get the common people to fight with and for them. And of course, with them having their own agenda. All right. And so remember, Joseph Ellis's book on Washington is found on number 3 in the War for Independence handout. And you see like a common kind of a revisionist interpretation of George Washington and being a rather motivated by self-interest. And he hated the British system of patronage, right? It wasn't fair and it wasn't rational to him. So that the best person, the most qualified ought to get the job, thought Washington, according to Joseph Ellis's book. And so there was an element of sour grapes regarding Washington's participation in the rebellion. All right, so we have those theses. By the second and third tests, I don't go over textbook questions. I'm hoping and assuming that you've garnered your textbook by now. Numbers 10 and 11 are found on number 1 and 2 in the Articles of Confederation assignment, the one called Turning to a Republic. So when we tried out the Confederation, right, and I mentioned that like with number 10, that the thesis is rather boring because there hasn't been a lot of rebuttal that's popularly, entered the fray, but that very selfish behavior on behalf of the colonists played right into the hands of the conservatives, who could say, I told you so, and having a government that was too democratic and too decentralized. And Pauline Myers' thesis is number 2. And you could discern from that that the founding fathers almost begrudgingly were forced to implement the enlightened facets of the Constitution by popular pressure. All right. Let's see here. The Federalist Papers. So let's see here. The type of government that was devised, right, was a constitutional federal republic. I think it's clear in the when you did the Constitution assignment, but just in case I've never explicitly stated that. So the constitutional part, that a written, colorblind, fair, and non-discriminatory document that enlists, especially that contains natural rights within it and checks and balances, ought to be the ultimate authority over the land, of course, by the people's consent, by popular consent. And then the federal part is a balance between state and local autonomy and the central government having power. And you see that balance in the Constitution. And the republic, right? And I just keep it simple to myself, keeping the Aristotle's interpretation of a mixed government that is partly monarchical with a powerful chief executive, that is partly aristocratic with an elite that is not popularly elected and directly accountable to the people, and a government of the demos, of the people, of the commoners. And so republic is a mixture of those 3 types of government, according to Aristotle. And so that's what we have. All right. And then number 14, we've never had a laissez-faire capitalist system. As you find on number 1 of the Great Man History of the Early Republic assignment, you see Hamilton heavily involved in our capitalist system right from the get-go. All right. Let's see here. The Federalist Papers. I wasn't sure if I have that in there or not, but they are defined as a philosophical, logical, historical defense of the need for a republic, more centralized and less democratic than that of the Confederacy. So you're looking at option A. All right. Let's see here. Enlightened and conservative components of the Constitution. I'm believing you can do that from the assignment that we've done. Number 18, Governor Morris, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, and other conservatives believe that while all American citizens ought to be equally entitled to the same basic rights, protections, and privileges, etc., not all would be equally capable as elected politicians. And that's exactly it. And remember, I said that in the Zoom meeting, asking you the rhetorical questions. Do you believe that all Americans are entitled to the same rights, privileges, protections, etc.? And of course, the answer to that rhetorical question would be yes. And then I follow it by an equally rhetorical question. Do you believe everyone is equally capable of fixing your car or of writing an English paper for you? And of course, the answer to that question is no. And so that was a conservative argument, but they still wanted the elite, the better sort, as they define them, to have limitations, to have restrictions, to have checks and balances, to hold them accountable. And that's why B does not work as an option. All right. And remember, the anti-federalists were libertarian. They didn't oppose libertarianism. They were libertarian. All right. Number 20 and 21 come right from number 1 of your Great Man History of the Early Republic. And as does number 22, as does number 23. Number 24 pertains to number 2 of your Great Man History of the Early Republic on John Adams. And remember, I mentioned that David McCullough engaged in court history in praising John Adams and contending that he was too honest for his own good, too independently minded for his own good, and it alienated him from both parties, from both sides of the political spectrum. The Alien and Sedition Acts were described as constitutionally dubious and controversial. They did give to Congress a power over, gave to Congress a power over immigrants constitutionally given to the president? No, that's vice versa. Permitted American citizens constitutional freedom to petition to be momentarily expanded? No, but curtailed, right? Cut short, limited under the Sedition Acts. All right, Hofstadter, remember on number 26, pertains to number 3 on your early Republic Great Man History assignment. And I called it the mommy and daddy thesis, right? About the democratic tastes of Thomas Jefferson, trying to defend and earn the approval, the approbation of his father, and dealing with a degree of wealth guilt. Which of the following is not included as ironic in Jefferson's purchase of the Louisiana Territory? You find that in the last number on his contradictions, right? And in there, let's see here, nothing in Article 2 states that the chief executive can purchase foreign claimed land. And Jefferson, as a libertarian, had been for strict interpretation of the Constitution. That is true, right? And he purchased the land anyway. Jefferson sent multiple expeditions into the far west, even prior to purchase of Louisiana Territory, some that included indicting evidence of imperialistic ambitions over the Native Americans. That is mentioned as well, and I mentioned that in the Zoom meeting. He established democratic institutions there immediately. No, he did not. Okay, remember, he had handpicked boards of 21 men. He did not trust the people in the Louisiana Territory to self-government. And so one of his many, many contradictions as a president, that's dealt with on number 4 of your Great Man History of the Early Republic. All right. And number 29 is found on number 4 as well. 28 deals with the textbook. Number 30, did he sadly express belief in essentialist, racist stereotypes of African Americans and privately and publicly refuse to take a stand concerning his love affair with his slave, Sally Hemings? Absolutely. Number 31 is from the textbook. All right. And then moving on to the War of 1812, found in that assignment. The War of 1812 was officially declared against the French and Native American tribes allied to them. Was it the French? Take a look at that, as you remember from your assignment that you did last week. I don't think so. Canadian civilians and forces enthusiastically embraced an American liberation en masse. If you saw the video, you might be skeptical of that. All right. And then according to the video, about fighting with the Native Americans. Many Ohio Valley Native Americans chose to join the Red Sticks against the United States on account of white settlers' intrusions and illegitimate American treaties in which some Native Americans sold others' lands. Absolutely. The fight against Native Americans in the South was less intense. No, according to the video and to the sources that I've read, if anything, it was more intense as the war dragged on in Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee and Kentucky, down further south, especially with the Creek tribe. All right, and so do any of you have any specific questions on another question, something that you don't understand, you were unable to discern from the handout? Because that's what I feel I believe I've been pretty fair in giving anything that was of doubt and not quite clear in the argumentative assignments that I've given. And that which I've left out, I think can be very overtly found in your assignments and in your textbook. So don't be shy. Anybody have any questions? All right. Can I get a thumbs up? You guys follow with me what I've covered? You guys doing okay? Hear me fine? Thank you, June. Thank you, Diego. Tricell. All right. So you guys can do this. You could do well on it. And remember, it's only one of 16 assignments that are worth 50 points. So don't stress yourself out too much. It's just one of 16 assignments that's worth 50 points. I give you the last 15 points as a curve and make it out of 50. And then for those of you, quite a few of you who have attended this meeting, I will add 5 to 10 more points in addition to that 15 for being here today. All right. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I know it was quick, but tests 2 and 3 usually are that way without me just overtly going through every question and giving the answers. Usually the meetings are about 20 minutes long. All right, so if you're okay, I have your names down. You'll get your extra credit for this test. Please be sure to turn it in by Sunday evening at midnight. And good luck, okay? I hope you do well. And take a look at your argumentative assignments for the answers to the other questions that weren't explicitly covered today. All right?
All right, thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate you guys coming. That was a good, respectable number of students today. That makes me happy. So good luck.